Hello and welcome to another episode of IT Pro TV. I'm your host Mike Roderick, and with me today is Mr. Sean Oriano. How you doing, Sean?
I am doing awesome. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's another exciting day here at IT Pro TV land. We are continuing on with our Kali Linux series, and in this episode we're going to be looking at social engineering. Now, I know social engineering is a concept that we want to talk about and expand upon. We've seen it in a couple other classes, but we're going to go over it here, and Sean, we've got a tool we can actually use, which is a first, I think, for social engineering. So why don't we start talking about what social engineering is, so we make sure everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah, let's just straighten some stuff out, right off the get-go, so we know what we're talking about with social engineering. And I'm aware, probably all of us are good on it, but let's just make sure, we have a good level playing field here.
It is a broad topic. I mean, it covers. There's a lot of things that fall under social engineering. Some of them you might not even realize, like, oh wait, that's social engineering. A lot of different techniques we can use, right?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things you can do. Social engineering wise, to manipulate, interact with, and extract information out of your target. It's just a question of your skill and what methods you're going to use. So you have to consider that. Now, we can carry out social engineering face to face or using technology. But still, you have to have some savvy and some capabilities yourself to be able to pull it off successfully. So when we look at doing it, traditionally there hasn't been a ton of tools that can help you out with it, other than just reading some books and being maybe a good actor and having a lot of confidence. That will help you out. But other than that, you kind of didn't have much to fall back on. Now with Kali, they've brought out this social engineering toolkit, and it's not really exclusive to Kali. It's something that you can get on other Linux boxes as well. But it does the same thing, and no matter where you're running it. It allows you to start crafting a social engineering strategy and really kind of get things moving. And it's customizable. It has a lot of tricks and all it up its sleeve that you can use. So it's kind of a neat thing. So no longer do you just have to rely on your own your own ability to act and your own confidence and savvy and all that to really extract information. Now, it definitely helps to have that. You can, if you really start observing how people interact with one another and know things about human nature, and you just know how to really pay close attention to what people are doing, you can get quite a bit. But this again will boost you up to another level and help you become even more successful as a social engineer.
All right. So social engineering again is really trying to take advantage of human nature. Right now, we're not talking about targeting a system or targeting a server, an application, or a protocol. We're targeting the human, right? That person that sits behind the keyboard, because they are one of the weaker links. You can't patch them. It all comes down to training, and people are surprisingly easy to convince to give up information that they really shouldn't be, either through trickery or through name dropping or several different methods. But the goal of social engineering is targeting the human. You're taking advantage of the weakness of the human.
Exactly. That sounds kind of ominous the way you say it. We are taking advantage of the weakness of the human.
That's right. All your base belong to us. So, for social engineering, we talk about what it is. It's taking advantage of human nature, getting people to give up information that they really shouldn't, and a lot of different commonly employed techniques that we use. Gosh, I'm thinking off the top of my head, just thinking some of the simple ones: dumpster diving, shoulder surfing. A lot of these we've covered it in CEH. We've talked about and broke them down a little bit. I'm trying to think. What are some other ones, Sean? Just
you had the one with human nature, human's ability to trust. That's an inherent ability that you get from the day you're born. So knowing how to leverage that, gaining that trust and then exploiting that trust. Learning that humans do have certain habits that they will go back to without even thinking about it. Like you said, name dropping definitely helps, adding extra weight and authority to what you say. Preying on people's moral obligations or morals, period, to get them to do something. You can pursue a lot of these things and push a lot of buttons to get somebody to do what you want. just by putting maybe a few of these together, and you can get that information. And you're right, you may not be, in this case, be going after an application or something specifically, but I could be using that information that I get from someone to further target a piece of software, or more, maybe even get find out a way to access it directly through a password or something like that to get in and extract the data I want without any effort whatsoever, other than what I invested in just talking to the person and taking some time to get to know them and start guiding the conversation to where I want it to go.
Yeah, and Ben in the chat room points out, blatant lying, and honestly, that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're creating a lot of times you're creating some kind of backstory that you want to use, like I don't know, like you were talking earlier about the gentleman that went into the different banks and said he was working on the power. I think you said the power system or something like that.
Yep.
That's a great example of social engineering. People see the uniform, they just assume that everything's okay. They let the guy in, and he could pretty much do or had free. You said he got a tour of the place. So that's a prime example of social engineering. People have tendencies, as Sean was saying. They like to be liked by their peers. They want to be. They want to get that pat on the back. They also have a respect. Most people have a respect for authority, and so sometimes they're what's a good way to say it? When they feel like there's somebody in power that has authority over them, they might be less inclined to think twice. Everybody knows they shouldn't give their passwords out. But when somebody who you think is your boss or a supervisor or somebody from the corporate headquarters is down in that branch office and he says, "What's your password?" You're like, and you spit it out, right, without even thinking.
Yeah, you get intimidated.
That you get intimidated, and that's what social engineering is really taking advantage of.
Yeah, it's really kind of amazing when you look at it. Just the different ways that and with skilled practitioner, the different ways that they can manipulate someone and do it in such a way that that person doesn't know they're really being manipulated, and just get that person to reveal all sorts of information. I mean, there's a few key things you can do with people that once you start engaging them and talking to them a certain way and guiding things a certain way, you start getting a level of trust. You start getting that person to become your buddy, and they start just really becoming your friend and telling you stuff, and it's just those type of things. And it can be as simple in some cases to get that trust, to exploit that trust is to dress a certain way. You were mentioning about authority, and then maybe even uniforms and stuff like that. That does get you pretty far just addressing a certain way. So people will definitely look at that and go, oh well, that person's wearing, they must be in charge. I mean, if you don't believe that's true, when you wear a tie or something like that, people look at that and say, oh well, that guy's wearing a tie, so he must be must be someone in authority, because people in authority wear that tie.
Exactly.
So that's just the way it kind of works. You go from jeans to a t-shirt to a suit. Yeah, it makes you look different. You don't shave, whatever.
Oh yeah, and that's just human nature.
You look like that, or not that, but that right there. And look at
Can you tell I haven't shaved?
See.
But yeah, it's surprisingly easy to do with a little bit of practice. If you're going to be a pen tester, social engineering has to be in your tool bag. You have to be able to do that, because a lot of times that's that first step on getting information, as you said, maybe gaining access to a system or to passwords, or learning policies. I always tell stories like you go up to you see that every afternoon after work you're scoping this business out. They walk across the street and they go sit down at the local pub and grub place there, and so you see that happen every day. So one day you go into that same place and you sit up at the bar or what have you, and they're going to come in right behind you because you've watched them, right? And then they get there, you strike up conversation, you say, oh, it's my job is horrible. We got to change our password every 45 days. It's got to be 8 characters long, and they remember the last 5 passwords I've used. I hate it. And one of those guys pipes up and says, that's really not that bad, dude. I mean, I've got to change my password every 30 days, and it's got to be 10 characters long, and they remember the last 24 passwords. Oh, that's horrible. I can't believe you got to put up with that. I just figured out what their password policy is at that company, right? Those are the kind of things you can get with social engineering, just tricking people. He didn't even realize, that he was giving up his company's security policy.
You know what else I take away from that story? Everyone in that story is a dude, because that's what dudes do. You think that's bad, and nothing. That's a bunch of guys right there, just letting you in on that. The women that are in there, that's what we do. We have to upstage one another.
That's it. That's how we talk when we go out to the bars.
Yeah. It's like, what? You got your last 5, my last 10. Oh, I remember everything back to like 72 or something like that.
Having business cards, as Ben points out in the chat room. Having different service uniforms, like you can go down to some of these clothing stores, used clothing stores, and find old service uniforms, stitch a different tag on there or whatever, and you'd be surprised how far you can go with just a simple shirt.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. That in fact, that's was what the guy in that was with that bank. That's what he did. He got a button-down shirt and actually put on one of those little car or ID badges. Something that you can get at Staples for like next to nothing. You got it, stuck it in there, and boom. Hey, you're that person now. You've got the ID badge. I mean, how many times do you see that guidance too? You look, you see someone with a name tag on them. Oh, well, they're cool. I can get a name tag pretty easily. That's not necessarily something that's really says that you are an authority or whatever. So it's just a lot of interesting things, and there's so many books and things written on how social engineering takes place, and you'll learn a lot of things about human nature that you just didn't realize was actually is actually there. You may have seen it your whole life, and just it's one of those things that your brain just doesn't pay attention to anymore. It just tunes it out or thinks it's just incidental. But when you look at it in a different light, you're like, oh, well, that does indicate something. There's all sorts of little things that people do with the way they act and talk, and you name it. You name it. I mean, I think of the stuff like poker games that they say people have a tell.
Right.
It's people have these little nervous habits that they do, and everyone has some sort of nervous little habit that they do, even if they say, yeah, I don't have it. Yeah, you've got one. You just wait till the next time you're nervous. I'll see something that you're doing, either it's a tapping your foot or the way you're moving your fingers or chewing your fingernails or picking your nose or whatever. Those are all things I do just in case. I like to have several just so I can rotate.
Mom's gonna get you on that one now. Thomas in the chat room puts another one up there. Job interview, a reverse interview, right? You may very well go in and take an interview, right? Apply for a job, and all you're doing is fishing for information. The guy's sitting there telling you, the interviewer is telling you that we need somebody that can support this and can support this, and we run this on so many systems and blah, blah, blah. He's describing his whole network to you. And you could just be making notes and taking that home and taking advantage of it. So lots of different ways you can gather information through social engineering. Now, the social engineering toolkit is one that John helps us build the backstory. I mean, what all does it allow us to do? Because really, social engineering is usually not so much an electronic attack. So what can they do for us?
Yeah, it's one of those things that if you're going to use the digital world to help you as part of a social engineering attack, it's the delivery mechanism. It's not the actual payload, I guess, is really the way to put it. You could use email to do a phishing attack. But what you've done is in the body of the email, you constructed that email with links and all that to look convincing. You're using email as the delivery mechanism for it to make that person, to get it on in their face, and then that email is constructed in such a way that it gains their trust. They look at it and see it's from a bank or it's from so and so or whatever. We see that. You see with email, even if they're not doing a phishing email directly where they're saying, oh, your bank's got to have its whatever reset, it could be something that preys on, people's morals. I mean, a lot of, or moral obligation. I mean, a lot of us have seen those emails where they send something out and they send an email to you saying that so-and-so has been stuck in a certain country and needs this amount of money for you to help them out. And that some people will send money out there because they want to help a fellow human being, and unfortunately, while they want to help a fellow human being, that person's out there trying to scam that individual. So you see just those sorts of things, and then you see other ones that are digitally based, but they're using people's sense of wanting to help and do the right thing. You think of whenever a major disaster hits, you pick one. Every major disaster that hits, there's been in short order been a campaign of emails coming out that say to help the victims of all that, and so people want to donate money. They see an easy way to do that, and boom, they're spending their money or giving their money to someone that has nothing to do with that charity, nothing to do with that cleanup, and is going to disappear with whatever cash they have. So that's that's where it kind of comes in, is that you're using technology as this delivery mechanism, and you're using all those things that we just talked about. You're building various mixtures of those into the digital world to send out to people to get a desired result. So social engineering toolkit is something is there to help you, really kind of construct a campaign to be able to do social engineering.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, shall we take a look at it then?
Yeah, we can take a look at it. You'll see the social engineering toolkit is a simple menu-driven thing. It's a command line stuff. That's about as much as a GUI you're going to get, so it kind of counts. But what we have is, you can see the menu that we have sitting down there. There's really the options that we have. Just to kind of point some stuff out here. Some of the options, I mean, 6. Okay, that's your help part of it. When you look at 4, it says update the social engineer toolkit. That's not really useful to you. The reason why I say 4 is not useful to you is that gets updated during the normal updates of Kali anyway. So if you try to use that, it just says, well, that's already done someplace else, and it kicks you back to the main menu. But anyway, we'll take a look at some of the things in here. I will just go ahead to kind of give you a peek of what's going on. Is if we go to our first option on the menu of social engineering attacks. So I say, well, that looks good. I want to do a social engineering attack. So you hit 1, and what happens is it brings up a sub-menu in here saying, here, here's the things that we have available to you. Is that you've got these other types of attacks you can pull off. So let's just say when we look through it, we want to do a spear phishing attack. So I will go ahead and hit 1 on that, and it says, okay, well, this is kind of the options in here, and yeah, my screen, since it's a little smaller, it tells you this is what it can actually do. Now this one has it's kind of got some it's kind of really weird the way it's wrapped around on there. But what I can do is it says, okay, perform a mass email attack. So it's asking me, you want to do a phishing with this type of as a mass email? Yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. And it starts asking me the way you want how you want to embed stuff in that email, so you can choose stuff off this list. I mean, look at the type of things it can use to to carry that out. That's a pretty broad amount of things. Buffer overflow stuff in there, just a bunch of different things you can use. I can just choose one off the list, and in no particular type of thing. I'll just choose 14 off that list, and just keeps going through on how you want to construct this. Here it's saying, what else do you want to do? You want to have it open a reverse shell out? Okay, yeah, I'll open a reverse shell out of there. And you can just keep populating this stuff. And I didn't really have kind of a specific rhyme or reason, to be honest. The combination of stuff I put together just kind of show you, you just choose something off this menu, it takes you to the next one, you choose something off there, and it's snapping those components together to actually make your attack, to craft it for you. Now, you don't necessarily have to get, and I'll just start dropping an IP address, and then I'll drop my loop back just for safety reasons. So you can see in here it's generating the actual attack from the input that I put together. Okay, boom. Yeah, it went ahead and it's kind of failing on a couple things because I'm pointing it back to my machine. I don't want it to go any place, so I'm playing it safe. So I'll do test.txt. That's where I'm going to save this. and okay, it wants an attachment, so I don't have an attachment ready for this. But
So it's saying, and one of the methods you chose then, so you
Yeah.
need a file that it's going to attach something to.
yeah, so I don't have one in here, so it's asking for an attachment to put on there, so I could start going to, if I had an attachment ready to send out this email, maybe like a script or something, I could go ahead and do that, but I don't have that ready. I think I've got, because it should be in my home folder, I should have, well, let's see if I can just attach one of the ones in here. I'll just do like a Sean.txt. Okay, it doesn't want to do that one either. So it put me in a little bit of a corner here with what I did. In fact, I'll just go ahead and go back here. But so that was just creating one attack, so you can kind of get the idea of what it was doing. But it also has, you can see, look at option 2. It's also got the same type of stuff, except it doesn't go into as much detail as option 1 does. Option 1 said, craft a campaign. You saw how many options it had. We were really going to town on that. There would have been a lot more things, actually happening. But what I've got here is I can see, well, what do you want to do? It has stuff already created for you. I can say I want to do stuff with SQL. Hit enter on that. How do you want to go through and look for stuff with SQL? So I'm just stepping through some stuff, like I said, kind of quickly here to show you the way the options, actually work and the way it does its job. And all you have to do is provide your input. If you've done your recon and all that, this should all be really easy for you to do. I just hit enter a bunch of times, so it went through and said, okay, well, I can't find a SQL server for this one. Well, yeah, there's no SQL server present anywhere in here. So obviously I would expect that. But you can see that you would, in this case, well, you put your IP, you tell it what you want to do, the type of attack, you put your IP addresses in, and it just wraps everything around that to create an attack based off of that.
Nice.
And this, you actually can create templates that it can use too. So if you don't like the standard templates that are in there, this is all documented. You can actually create your own templates and drop it into the social engineering toolkit, and it will create a campaign based around those templates too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
So expand your own menus and add other options to it.
Oh yeah, in fact, if I go back to the main menu, if I do 99 on here, you can see it's got, for option 3, it's got third-party modules. If I click on that, well, I don't really have any that much in the way of third-party modules. There's really only a couple, a couple in there. But remote administration tool, you can see it's got a couple remote administration tools in there. That's kind of neat. So you could construct a campaign, and these third-party modules, you can attach these or embed these into an email and send them to someone, and they get tricked into running the thing, and all of a sudden they've opened up a back door on the system that you can now go in.
Wow. That's impressive. I was curious to see what the tool was going to be able to do for me. In my mind, I was thinking, social engineering, how can a tool help me do that? I've got to be able to smooth talk somebody, or I got to be able to, do some type of technique like that. That's pretty impressive. I can see where that can really pay off.
Yeah, this is just kind of a quick and rough look at it. We don't really have a specific campaign in mind when you're doing this, but it's just to kind of show you, yes, you can go through these menus, and you can start choosing the stuff off there and snapping together the pieces to make an attack and come out with a pretty decent attack in pretty short order. And other people do write modules for this. There's all sorts of scripting and stuff behind this that you can plug into it, and so you could create your own your own modules, or get something from someone else to really customize this. So it's really kind of a neat thing. I mean, even look at it. We're running this on Linux. It even has stuff for PowerShell, on it. It's got the capability of exploiting PowerShell, so we could deploy this to Windows and get it to do stuff over there.
I'm dying to dive into that QR code generator. I mean, who can resist scanning a QR code? It's like, oh, I got to see what that's going to get me. That's the first one I'm diving into when I get home tonight.
You can imagine the types of fun and games you can have with stuff like that. I guess when you really play around with it, there's just so much. I mean, you can even see on there there's stuff for do attacking wireless and all that good stuff. So it's just a really kind of a neat thing for you to add to your toolkit. And I would encourage all of you just to start to play with this type of thing to see what it can do for you. Yeah, you can do the QR codes if you want to do that, but then there's plenty of other stuff in here as well that you can really go to town with and do some really neat stuff.
Yeah, that's very impressive. Well, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, just when you thought you couldn't learn anything more about social engineering, bam, there you go. There's a whole tool built into Kali to help you get better at social engineering. And I'm not saying you should go out there and social engineer everybody, but as a penetration tester, this has to be in my toolkit, right? I have to be able to perform these tests. If I'm going to do a true penetration test against an organization, yes, I'm doing all of my network-based, tests and things like that. I've got to test their employees just as much, though, because they are one of the weaker links. And that company could have everything nice and secure on that network. It just takes one human that hasn't been trained properly to fall victim to a social engineering attack and blow holes wide open in their system. So it has to be a part of your penetration testing process, right, is doing that social engineering. So here's a way that you can practice, get a little better, learn new tips and tricks on how to do social engineering. Very impressive. All right, well, Sean, anything else we want to throw in for social engineering? That was a lot of good info.
Yeah, there's a couple things. First of all, I am recommending that you go out and do social engineering, trick people. I don't care what he says. I'm saying do it for fun and profit. That's how you learn. And so there's that. And the other one, you keep saying the weakest link. I think we need to get that British lady who does that game show to do that. We need to dub that in after that. The weakest link.
You are the weakest link.
We need that to happen. I want that. I want that to happen.
And then all of a sudden, a hole opens up under my feet, and I disappear. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed watching this show on social engineering. I know we had a blast filming it for you. But that's going to do it for today. So signing off for IT Pro TV, I'm Mike Roderick.
And I'm Sean Ariano.
And we'll see you next time.